This is macOS Ken.
iPhone keeps conquering, Apple's AI moves continue, and desperately seeking Usher. It is Friday, the 9th of February, 2024. I'm Ken Ray, and this is news from macOS Ken, brought to you by yours truly and supported by people like you, patrons through Patreon. Find out more and add your support at patreon.com/macOSCan. Two sets of stats that I missed last week in all of the earnings call and Vision Pro hullabaloo, both from Counterpoint Research and both tied to iPhone. Yeah, remember iPhone? According to the first release, U.S. smartphone shipments grew 8% year-on-year in the fourth quarter of 2023, based on Counterpoint's Market Monitor findings. That was mostly thanks to iPhone sales having tanked the year before or something. Remember that time in late 2022 when iPhone factories in China closed down due to COVID restrictions, leaving Apple with too few phones to sell for that holiday season? With enough iPhones to sell this past holiday season, things were apparently back to normal. At least they were for iPhone. Android sell-in declined in the fourth quarter as lower-end OEMs experienced demand weakness, according to the market tracker. Meanwhile, AT&T, T-Mobile, and Verizon all reported weaker upgrade rates and equipment sales. Recovery for iPhone plus the tanking of everyone else meant a bigger share for the Jesus phone. iPhone share of the U.S. market hit 64% last quarter. That is the highest it's been since the fourth quarter of 2020. As for the second set of stats, Counterpoint says iPhone hit a record 50% of smartphone revenue in 2023. Now, at first I thought I must be misreading that. We've heard plenty of times before that Apple makes the most money in smartphones, but this is not that. Those old stories actually had iPhone making most of the profit in smartphone sales. Before even getting to who made how much of what, Counterpoint's figuring that half of all of the money spent on smartphones last year was spent on iPhone, which is crazy. Weighing in on Apple's performance, Counterpoint Research Director Jeff Fieldhack said, Apple displaced Samsung as the biggest player in shipments for the first time in a full year. While the U.S. made the biggest volume contribution to Apple's growth, it also received a major boost through double-digit growth in emerging markets, including India, Caribbean and Latin America, and Middle East and Africa. This growth offset any challenges Apple may have faced in China due to the resurgence of Huawei. A headline from Bloomberg says top AI companies join government effort to set safety standards. And yes, Apple is one of the top AI companies by at least a couple of measures. First, it is the most valuable company on the planet with a stated interest in AI. And second, it apparently bought more artificial intelligence startups last year than anybody else. Stats from Statista, highlighted on the site Stockalytics, show Apple having bought up to 32 AI startups in 2023. That's said by the site to be the highest number of artificial intelligence acquisitions among major tech companies. While many have bemoaned Apple's current lack of whiz-bang in the AI space, Stockalytics financial analyst Edith Reeds argues that by acquiring promising AI startups, Apple gains access to top-tier talent and innovative technologies and consolidates its foothold in crucial AI domains, ensuring a competitive edge in the rapidly evolving tech landscape. So yeah, they have taken a seat at the AI warriors table. To be fair, though, it is a big table. Called the AI Safety Institute Consortium, the organization serves under the Commerce Department. Over 200 names are said to be part of that organization, including Amazon, Anthropic, Apple, Google, Hugging Face, IBM, Meta, Microsoft, and OpenAI. According to Bloomberg, the group will work with the National Institute of Standards and Technology, a body within commerce, along with other technology companies, civil society groups, academics, and state and local officials to establish safety standards regarding AI. When we heard earlier this week that iOS 17.3.1 was apparently on the way, I would have put money on an imminent security update. And that is money I would have lost. Mac Rumors ran a few pieces Thursday announcing the release of iOS and iPadOS 17.3.1, macOS Sonoma 14.3.1, and watchOS 10.3.1. For the phones, tablets, and computers, the updates address text bugs. Notes for the iOS and iPadOS updates say they include a fix for a bug that could cause text to unexpectedly duplicate or overlap while typing. Similarly, the update for macOS addresses a bug that could cause text to get randomly replaced while typing, according to the report. Apple was even less specific around the update for watchOS. Notes for that simply say, this update includes improvements and bug fixes for your Apple Watch. A visit to Apple's security updates page shows no published CVE entries for any of this week's updates. There's an apparent change coming for iOS 17.4 for the EU that sounds really uncool. Another piece from Mac Rumors says Apple has seemingly restricted the functionality of progressive web apps in the latest beta of iOS 17.4, specifically targeting users within the European Union. The move appears to undermine the role of these apps as viable alternatives to native apps in iOS. Or, as the headline puts it, iOS 17.4 nerfs web apps in the EU. According to the report, the new beta version of iOS prevents these apps from launching in their own top-level window that takes up the entire screen, relegating them instead to open within Safari, a change that significantly impacts the user experience and functionality. The move effectively demotes these web applications to mere website shortcuts. Hey, remember that time developers wanted to develop for iPhone before there was an app store? And Steve Jobs said, web apps, and developers sort of died inside? Now that web apps might be close in functionality to native apps, Apple's going to hobble them just ahead of DMA changes? The timing feels odd. The way Mac Rumors sees it, Apple's decision to alter the functionality of progressive web apps specifically in the EU could be interpreted as an attempt to navigate the regulatory landscape imposed by the Digital Markets Act, but it may simply want to prevent users in Europe from using web apps with alternative browser engines. The company has not yet commented on its motivations. You know how Apple keeps arguing that outside the App Store isn't safe, while inside the App Store is? News today of a decidedly unsafe app that made it into the App Store. Apple Insider has word of a fake password manager that got through review and into Apple's walled garden. The app in question was called LastPass, not to be confused with LastPass, though the developers of the former were almost definitely hoping for that confusion. In a blog post to users on Wednesday, LastPass wrote, LastPass would like to alert our customers to a fraudulent app attempting to impersonate our LastPass app on the Apple App Store. The app in question is called LastPass Password Manager, and it lists Pavarti Patel as the developer. The app attempts to copy our branding and user interface, though close examination of the posted screenshots reveal misspellings and other indicators that the app is fraudulent. Apple Insider says the fake did resemble the branding of the established app, and that it seemed to be passing itself off as LastPass. The site says that raises the question of whether it's not just a knockoff, but instead a tool for later phishing. Whichever the case, not a great look for App Store's review team, especially given Apple's insistence lately that out there is scary and in here is cool. LastPass ended its Wednesday post saying that it was working to have the knockoff knocked off the App Store. That seems to have succeeded. I could not find the Imitation app when I went looking for it Thursday night. If you're looking to pedal around Sweden or Switzerland, you've got a friend in Apple Maps. A piece from Mac Rumors says Apple's answer to cartography has added cycling navigation for those two countries. According to the report, iPhone users in the Swiss Confederation and Sweden began receiving notifications about cycling directions overnight Wednesday night. Apple Maps provides cycling directions along bike lanes, bike paths, and bike-friendly roads wherever possible, including details like steep inclines, how busy a street is, and whether there are stairs or other obstacles along the route. It's only been on the market for about 4 months, but a piece from Apple Insider says the M3 MacBook Pro has turned up in Apple's Refurbished store. Only one model is available so far, the 14-inch with the M3 processor. That said, the piece says a number of different storage options and RAM configurations are available. Prices start at $1,359 for the base model. That is a savings of $240 off a truly new machine. And finally today, if you see Usher before this weekend's Super Bowl halftime show, could you get in touch with Apple, please? The company's been running a Where's Usher promotional campaign ahead of this week's Apple Music halftime extravaganza. The setup. Ludacris, Lil Jon, and Taraji P. Henderson have lost the halftime performer in Las Vegas just days before the Apple Music sponsored event. They are tasked by Apple CEO Tim Cook with finding the performer, which seems only fair since they're the ones who lost him. Splitting up to find Usher, the trio turned to or bump into such notables as J Balvin, Wesley Snipes, Chris Angel, and Blue Man Group. It's an ad for Vegas, an ad for Usher, and of course, an ad for the halftime show. This is Apple Music's second year sponsoring that event. Super Bowl 58 is this Sunday, the 11th of February. Kickoff is set for 6:30 Eastern, 3:30 Pacific. It'll air here in the States on CBS. A piece from USA Today says a kid-centric version will also be broadcast on Nickelodeon. The game will also be streamed on Paramount+. This week on the checklist, brought to you by SecureMac. Did you hear about the 3 million toothbrush botnet that didn't actually happen? We'll tell you all about it. Plus, getting to the bottom of the fake Joe Biden calls to New Hampshire primary voters. That is all on Checklist 363, brought to you by SecureMac. Get it this weekend, wherever you get podcasts. macOS Ken, brought to you by me, and supported by people like you, patrons through Patreon. Find out more and add your support at patreon.com/macOSKen. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media. Online at backbeatmedia.com. You can reach me a couple of ways. info@macosken.com or call 716-780-4080. Until next time, that is news from macOS Ken. I'm Ken Ray.
Ciao.